Welcome back, Coffee for Closer listeners. Today, I got an espresso shot. So just wanted to get in here and let it rip, speak for the heart. And again, I always try to talk about things that are relevant to me on my journey. So hopefully if you're listening that, this strikes a chord of where you're at on your journey. And again, we don't just talk about the wins here. We talk about, going through the valley and how you come out the other side of it stronger. And today's episode should be pretty quick. I just wanted to talk a little bit about learning to move with God, or like learning to listen to God and how he takes a role in your journey, in your decision. So if you're in a place to where you are essentially not knowing where you're going, how you're getting there, you're running into dead ends, which I always call God's cul-de-sacs, and I'll explain why here in a little bit. Just to be able to recognize and learning to listen to God. So, you know, my journey from Alaska, went to University of Kentucky, basically failed out my freshman year of college and didn't really know exactly how to move forward from there. That was, one of God's cul-de-sacs that redirected me to Hawaii. And when you're in a place to where you're setting goals and you're like, I want to go do this, and you're wondering, hey, does God want me to do this? And again, I could go get some, a bunch of Bible scripts and put it to what I'm talking about and sound really smart and theological. But there's a reason why they call it the Living Bible. And for me, because again, I think there's interpretations of what it means for each of us, is that God is living through me. And, there's, again, I could talk about my journey and my story, and you could talk about your journey, and there will be scripts that back it up. Again, if you're living by God, through God. And it's kind of one of those things where, talk about it for a second. So I just got done jamming through the Pentateuch, which is the first 4 books of the Bible, and talks about, a lot like the creation, and Moses' journey. And so where does this connect, and where does it correlate in with you in your life today? And you can either take it as a literal example, or, you know, uh, Moses' people were in Egypt as slaves for over 400 years. And Moses came and freed them and took them through the desert, where they then had to, search through the desert to the promised land for 40 years. And so you can actually look at this in correlation of your life. Like, where today are you in Egypt? Where are you a slave in the society that we live today, also known as Egypt? And when you hit awareness of that situation and you're like, all right, well, I want to move, I want to pivot, I want to shift and go in different directions, you'll probably end up in this desert loneliness, trying to identify your identity, where you're going, why you're going. Why did I leave Egypt? It was such a comfortable place. We were provided everything that we needed. But it's being able to recognize, where in your life are you living as a slave today, with society, with the world around you today, with our culture. And again, if you're trying to go and say, yeah, but I'm working this corporate job, like you're a slave to it, and I want to go start my own company, you will go through the desert period in which you're like, why am I doing this? And then you will also say, where is God? Where's guidance? I need signs. And so recognizing that, and then getting to, the promised land, we'll call it. And like, what is the promised land to you? Where are you going? Is that, hitting success? Well, what is success? Because success 10 years ago for me is completely different than success is today. And so throughout this entire process of just recognizing that as well, in my story, again, when I failed out of my freshman year of college at UK, I had a couple different scholarships to go to different locations. And when I called that God's cul-de-sacs, because, and I've heard a lot of people talk about this as well, in terms of, there is no failure. The only failure is not trying, is not moving forward. You are going to get knocked down a bunch of times. And as long as you get up, recognize what got you there, and then move forward, there is no failure. There's only learning lessons. And so again, when I failed out my freshman year of college year, which again, at the time was a little bit of an identity crisis, like, what am I going to do? Where am I going to go? At that point, that was God's cul-de-sac in saying, this is not the direction for you. And so I had scholarship at Hawaii Pacific University. And I remember because I had some buddies that were moving from Kentucky and going to go to Hawaii and on full scholarship. And I was like, I think I could do that. And I called the coach and was like, hey, this is my stuff. I'll send you my video. And he's like, yeah, just get me a video. And, we're going to close off scholarship opportunities the next couple weeks. So I went and recorded my video, sent it to him. And if you're listening to this, I was a male cheerleader as well. I did football, hockey, soccer, wrestling. I did every sport you could in Alaska. Growing up in Alaska, your number one football player will end up in some crappy scholarship to a D2 school. But I knew with the gymnastics background, I could pretty much go get free school wherever I wanted to go. So that's the premise there. So I sent him the video. He's like, yeah, cool. We're going to offer you a full scholarship. Just get here. And I was like, all right, well, what do I do now? And again, I was in Kentucky for a year and I called Hawaii Pacific University and I was like, hey, how long is my application when I'm accepted to the college? How long is it good for? They're like 2 years. So I was like, all right, we'll pull my file up. And just want to make sure. And like, yeah, you're good. You still have another year of acceptance eligibility. So at that point, I'm like, all right, this is it. Like God's alignment. God shut me down where I was not supposed to go and made alignment to Hawaii. And then in the next 30 days, I sold everything that I owned in Kentucky, bought a ticket back to swing through Alaska to just kind of coop up for a week or two before I flew to Hawaii, which I had never been in my entire life. And it was God's guidance. And so being able to recognize that sometimes when you hit this dead end, what seems to be a dead end, it's God repositioning you to where you're supposed to be. And it was the best decision of my life. I went to Hawaii, loved every second of it, met my wife, which we now have 3 beautiful daughters, to where like when you look back at the journey, you absolutely see God's fingerprint. So it's hard to see God when you're looking forward, but you can absolutely see him when you look backwards, because there was like no way that I could have made those decisions myself and ended up in Hawaii in those decisions as well. And so, being able to recognize that as well is like, hey, what are the signs? What do they look like? What is God telling me to do? So I ended up in Hawaii. And then same thing, we had built a super successful business and career and lifestyle in Hawaii. Still love Hawaii today. But we just started to hit this point in like 2018, 19, to where we're like, I'm being called for more. I'm being called to do something else. And we didn't know why, but we knew we wanted to take our business acumens and go try out in different markets and try different things. And I didn't want to live my entire life in Hawaii seeing one beautiful sunset. And it is a beautiful sunset. I was like, life is meant to be, to me, to try to go see as many sunsets as I possibly can. And all of those together will create my life journey, right? So same thing, 2017, 18, 19, I think we were like, because Nisa's family's originally from New York, but they ended up in Colorado. So they were all in Colorado. And I was like, I think we're going to expand to Colorado. And no, like literally business partners, no one understood what we were doing. We're like, I don't care what you say. Like I'm being called to expand there. Oh, well, you're moving to Colorado? No, we're not going to move there. We're going to expand there. We're going to expand to Colorado, kind of move there a little bit, kind of use that as a home base. And then I'm going to run multiple locations. People thought we were crazy walking away from what we had built in Hawaii. And again, it was just, there was no like clear 100% like, oh, well, we have to go do this. There was a calling to do it. And so we slowly over the year expanded and started, we bought a house because the prices were ridiculously low compared to what we're used to in Hawaii, which was exciting. And so over the year, we just kind of like traveled back and forth a lot. We'd bring a bunch of stuff. We just shipped a bunch of stuff, not really knowing this solid or this solid, clear answer, but a calling. And then what was it? 2019, about October, we were like, most of our shit is in Colorado. And so we made the push to kind of make Colorado home base and then travel back to visit Hawaii and go back and forth. And then when people actually saw what we were doing, and there was a lot of learning lessons that came through that process, because COVID hit at that point, which I was a reactive manager before that. Well, once I couldn't just reactively fly back and go deal with problems, I actually had to deal with things 2, 3, 4 steps ahead before they actually happened. I actually became a better manager, and it expanded my business knowledge and experience. when people actually saw what we were doing and how we could run multiple markets, and it was actually a little bit of a life hack being in Colorado, lower cost of living, closing deals in Hawaii, a few different people actually followed suit. So they saw what we did. We kind of like, I'll say broke the 4-minute mile. And when they saw that you could actually run different things in different places, they saw that you could do it and it actually could create a nice lifestyle for you. So, but recognizing there was a calling, like things weren't necessarily working out great in Hawaii the way that we had wanted them to. So there was like, all right, well, I don't feel great here. And I didn't know, like I couldn't see the path ahead of knowing that we were going to go do this, but we actually ran it and it was a super fun lifestyle. Well, again, it's being able to recognize, where is God calling you to be? What are the signs that he's giving you? And it's the same thing. So managing people, running teams and operations, being able to see a red flag. And I'll say this, when you see a red flag and you have a gut feeling, we call it a gut feeling just to educate you on that if you're not familiar, you have something called the vagus nerves that are all around your inner being, like your stomach. And there are this nerve system that's all around your stomach. And what happens is it's a super sensitive nerve system. And it basically is like when your body's tingling from something that's going to happen or red flags, it's telling your brain like something's off, something's off, something's off, which is why they call it a gut feeling, because of those vagus nerves. Well, when you run into red flags, because there's two different opposing, I guess, mindsets that are going to come through here. Because when you set a goal, and this is what Nisa and I have been really great at doing, I want to accomplish that. You are going to face obstacles, almost like God's test to accomplish that thing. So a lot of people set a goal, they get slapped once in the face, and they're like, oh, wait, I got slapped once in the face. Like, I don't think I'm supposed to do that. No, you're supposed to push through that. And it's almost the testament of you actually proving to God that that's what you want to get. And so recognize that you're going to face obstacles, you're going to get slapped in the face, and you have to be able to push through and persevere through those to actually prove to God that that's what you're trying to accomplish. And then you will essentially accomplish that. Now, on the flip side, you're going to run into some obstacles, some objections, some red flags that you are meant to listen to. So, for example, like I brought on an agent and there was just red flags. Like we just couldn't coordinate on meeting. This fell through, that fell through. And I just kept forcing it through. That was God's red flags. And so the same thing, like whether you're hiring people, whether you're managing people, there will be things to where, like, if you're trying to do something and it's just not working out, like, and doesn't have to be a slap in the face, but it's not clicking. It's not aligning for that specific thing. Then you're supposed to listen. And that's God trying to protect you. And when you force through those things, typically bad things happen. So again, it's being able to recognize, like, where is God guiding me? Like, what does it feel like? What does God's thumbprint look like? When is it an objection that I'm supposed to drive through to accomplish a certain goal? And when is it a red flag to where God is just saying, hey, nope, not that one, not that. You shouldn't do that. And so you actually these are things that this is only true to you, to where you will actually see it, to where when you're trying to accomplish a big goal, you're going to get slapped in the face. You're going to get knocked down. You have to be able to get up, dust yourself off, and move forward. But through that process, you're going to run into red flags as well while you're building it. And you need to be able to recognize what God is trying to tell you, where God is trying to guide you, what is just an objection or an obstacle that you're meant to drive through, and what is a red flag that you're meant to listen to. And so again, this is, I just listened to a video that was just talking about this season of silence. Well, it's the desert period of the 40 years that Moses waited to be refined as a person before he could, quote unquote, lead the people to the promised land. So that season of silence is so critical, because that is where you learn to listen to God, to you, because God will speak to every single person differently, and you need to be able to interpret those teachings, those guidance, God's guidance, and internalize it for yourself. So, if you're ending up in the desert and you're in silence and you feel lonely, like, that's God refining you. That's God testing you, making sure that you're clear. Because I'm super guilty of this too, in terms of like scrolling. Well, what are you scrolling for? And it's like, there's a lot of times where I'm confused and not clear and looking for certainty. And I'm seeking for that. I'm seeking for someone that went through something similar, that pushed through a certain way to where I'm like, okay, cool, I can do that. Well, at the end of the day, because I'll talk about this here in a second as well. It's me and God, and whatever God is to you, like it's me and God that is meant to drive forward. So I think there's a time for seeking coaches and mentors that can kind of help you maybe navigate, hey, do this, don't do that, to avoid being slapped. And then there's a time where you just need to be able to sit in silence and like be with you. Who are you? Like, are you a version that shows up for social media? Are you a certain person to accomplish certain things? At the end of the day, like when you strip all that away, and this is why I love long conversations as well that Joe Rogan talks about, because you can like riff raff and, BS through stuff for 45 minutes and, uphold a certain image. But if you're talking to somebody for 3 hours, you're going to find out who they are. And so it kind of comes down to like, who are you? Like, and so when you remove the noise, because a lot of times, most of the time, social media is just noise, and you're seeking for this clarity or certainty that doesn't exist, that you can only find within yourself and, with God, through God, and just being yourself. And then again, it's the refinement period. So, if you're not getting answers, maybe you're supposed to just sit there, or maybe that is the answer. And so again, I just wanted to come here and rip for a minute, because I'm having some like beautiful alignments that take place. Because a lot of times too, that we get into this is you wanting something and constantly like, now God, now God, now I'm ready, I'm ready, I'm ready. His plan is far superior than your plan. And, even this, been running real estate operations for a long time, done some consulting sales for some, billion-dollar corporate companies, and had massive learning lessons and victories that came through that. Well, if I could, even the Kentucky, I would never be able to say, I'm going to go to Kentucky. Things aren't going to work out. I'm going to end up I could not have planned that. There's no way. And that's where God's plan creates your plan. And again, I said this in a previous episode, but it's, one of my favorite quotes is that I do not fear the path ahead of me. And that's the unknown, because of the path that is behind me. And the path that behind me is a ridiculous path that I could have never mapped out, planned, and made it if it wasn't for God. So because I know I have made it through this crazy path, and God has guided me exactly where I needed to go at every step, at every time, at every chapter, then because of that and where I am today, I should not fear the path ahead, because I know that God is going to guide me that same exact way. So, again, having some awesome alignments that are coming to where like I was really driving, trying to force things through, not force things through in a bad way, but control. I was trying to control. What is control? Control is lack of faith in God's plan. Well, the second I was like on some opportunities that I had coming up to where I was like, hey, that like I'm driving on these two things because they're existing. And that one thing, that opportunity, like I'm just going to leave it be. Like, I've poked at it a little bit, and, not a lot has come back. So, whatever is going to happen is going to happen. And I'm not going to, that was absolute faith in that plan. The second that I was like, I am good with that. If anything comes, great. That's ultimate faith in God's plan. And I swear to God, this, like the day that Nisa and I had talked about this, a day later, something was like, hey, by the way, this just came up from that opportunity. And so beautiful alignment. I know that, things don't always work out in our timeline. They work out in God's timeline. And it's about being able to sit in that space and actually just let it happen, let it ride. Again, through my experience too, we've brought on a bunch of different agents, and there were times where I would try to like control the situation, get the agent, like do this, do that, like do all these things to try to like maintain, sustain, manage, like, and control the situation. And then there was a couple agents or people that like, I was like, I don't even care. Like whatever happens, God's got it. And whatever that plan is going to be, the people that I tried to essentially like control the situation never worked out. The ones that I put to God and just said, whatever happens, actually worked out perfectly. So through my process, because again, I've gone through massive ups, downs, rights, lefts, turnarounds, getting knocked down, getting back up. I have learned to listen to God, try to, because we're not perfect. I'm not perfect, to recognize red flags that are God's protection and navigate through there. So it's kind of like, a subtle whisper. And again, the desert period is so important because you learn to listen to God, because it's not this loud, flaming bush. Unfortunately, we don't get flaming bushes about what we should and shouldn't do, especially in this world and society. So even more, with the louder it gets, the more noise that's out there, you need to be able to sit back, sit down, and sit in silence, because that's you being you, just recognizing it. And that's where God will speak to you. So, we meditate quite a bit. And again, it says in the Bible to meditate on the word, but I meditate constantly, because it's me trying to calm my mind to be able to actually like recognize and see and hear the things that I need to be able to do to move forward. So thanks for listening, guys. Again, I could go back through and take a lot of these interpretations and, things from the Living Bible and put scripture behind it and sound very intelligent. I didn't want to, I don't need to. So it's biblically driven. God has his hand all over my life and my journey, my beautiful daughters that we would have never planned, because again, in all of this, Nisa and I never really wanted to start a family and have kids. And luckily God has different plans. And it's literally like one of the biggest blessings in my life is the 3 daughters that I currently have, my lovely wife. But I just wanted to get on here and share that, because I know that everyone's going through it. And again, I have had some great mentors that Nisa and I would go in, when we're running business, and we'd go like, wow, 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 like, woe is me. And I remember the mentor would be like, you're not special. Like, if you are going through this, everyone is going through this. And the reality is you're not special. And that's not a bad thing. It's a reality of we are all going through it. Like, the world has changed, is constantly changing. The industry, whatever business industry you're in, has changed and is constantly going to be changing. And like, the fact is, like, and here's the thing too, because I look back, I'm like, oh, that was definitely a year we got slapped down and went through it. The year we went through it and went through like our refinement period, some people were doing amazing. And the same thing back in, I will say pretty much through 2000, from 2014 till probably like 2024, like everything was pretty damn great business wise, financially wise. And so we were actually going through these abundant periods where I know, individuals, colleagues, and friends that they were going through a refinement period in 2016 or 2017 or 18 or 2020. I know a lot of businesses that got slapped down pretty hard in 2020. And the way that we were structured, 2020 was actually a explosive year of growth and financial, the way that everything kind of had aligned. So whatever chapter you're in, everyone is in a different chapter. You might be in a different season that other people are in a season. And it's about just being able to recognize that, hey, there's seasons, and I constantly have to reframe my mindset with everything that's going on. It's especially if you're in a state that has, winter and cold, like, does a tree bloom all year long? And the reality is no, there's seasons. And in the winter, there's nothing that you can do to make that tree bloom, aside from put it in a greenhouse, which again, just not going there. If it's a naturally growing tree, there's nothing you can do in the winter to make that tree bloom. And the same goes for the life that you're living, is that you might be in a bloom abundant season and it's great. Reap the harvest when it's sunny out, make hay. Or to recognize that if it's a winter season, it doesn't matter what you find on social media, what you find online, what a mentor or a coach is going to say. Like, there is nothing that you can do to make that tree bloom. And it's okay, because that is a refinement period. That's the desert holding pattern of, you being a better version of yourself and coming through it. And, I can be a testament to, there's a lot of things back in, like, let's just say 2016 that like I wouldn't have been able to handle today. So I've grown as a leader, as a business professional, as a father, as a husband, to where like the foundation that I have today is a strong foundation. The foundation I had in 2016, 17, 18, whatever it is, was built on sand. So again, just thanks for letting me rip, guys. Again, I hope if you're listening that, and this strikes a chord, that it's okay. We all go through the valley. We are all climbing a mountain. And it's, a lot of people have said this too, like, what's your hard? And the reality is life is hard at some level for every single person. So if you were born with a silver spoon in your mouth, hard might being to find relevance and to find actual like joy in the growth and actually being able to build, as opposed to starting from scratch, starting from nothing and building something up from the ground up that that you and God had put your hands on and you were able to build it. So like they're both hard. They're just different, and they're different hard for different people. So wherever you're at in your life and you're going through hard times or good times, being able to recognize that it's okay. We all go through different seasons at different times at different chapters, and we're all on different chapters of the same book, and that it's okay. And at the end of the day, like, no one is going to come and save you. No one is going to come and give you that answer. That answer is going to be found in the person that you are. And that's being able to sit in silence and actually just listen. So thank you, listeners. Coffee for Closers, Espresso shot, being able to listen to God. I hope you enjoyed the episode and it was fun. Thanks, guys.